the UN number that we had. 208-1993. He established to them that the government, he asked them, I don't know why your government continuously wants to involve your lives in our government and our nation. He asked them, well, what is the problem? Why won't you recognize they received a blue badge? A blue badge is the documentation of his establishment as a sovereign head of state, who he is, his descendancy, his bloodline, our descendancy, our bloodline, which is presented to foreign nations for their acknowledgement, or that puts them on notice of who we are. Not their acknowledgement. We don't need their acknowledgement. And that's why I think at this particular point, the authorized authority, the authority that has been placed and programmed in our mind is the United States government. And most countries around the world have accepted this same doctrine, which allows them to continuously to be abused. They go into their countries, indigenous lands, do what they want, and they're scared to say anything or scared to fight because of this so-called image of superiority that's been placed in movies and media doctrine that says they can flip and beat and find a criminal quicker than anyone else. They can find a bomb at the last second. They're the best good guys, the best bad guys, the highest court is the Supreme Court. No. It's stated in this day and time that we will bring the beast down. And it's expressed and it's explained like the dirt in an oyster, which we consider the lowest of the low in this country. So the heavens compared us to a grain of sand that goes into an oyster. And in that irritation, the oyster creates what? A shiny pearl. So out of the filth of this society, the shiny pearl will come forth, and that stone, like David and Goliath, for those that accept the story, that stone will bring down that giant, which we will do. But we have to do it as a unified body. It's time for the Nuwaubians to what? Stand up. That wasn't convincing. Y'all nervous? Go. It's time to stand up. Let's continue. Furthermore, this proceeding, the United States court contends that they lack knowledge. The master on the phone expressed that because the moment he expressed it to this judge that who he was and what he was stating on record, the judge said, I don't understand you. At that moment, he breached his obligation. At that moment, he violated his oath. There's no way that you can sit as a judge and say, I don't understand the laws of my own country. You asking a defendant to explain to you what you should know? Violation. That's what he said. I don't understand. You don't understand? How you don't understand that you took an oath to uphold the laws of the country in which you're governing? You have people's so-called people's lives in your hand. The United States lacked international jurisdiction. Instead of finding proprio moto, and that the immunity of the foreign head of state had accordingly been violated, they continued on with the proceedings. Another breach of its obligation to his human rights occurred by failing to prevent any future or further acts of torture, degrading or inhumane treatment against President Dr. Malachi K.T. York, as stated by him through the officer of the court. There's an international responsibility. And what we mean by what is international law, the international responsibility is this. Any official, police, government official that commits an act that violates international law, that one act the United States is responsible for. I don't care if it's a police officer out here in New York City. If they violate international law, the United States is responsible and has to pay for that. And SEALs violated international law. Every person that touched the master teacher, the one that put handcuffs on him, violated international law. The person that shut the door and locked the door violated international law. The person that brings him food violated their international law. Every act is reparations, and we are rewarded for that. That is our reparation that they have to give us. That's our substance, that we will come out of this country with great substance, as it says according to Genesis 15, where it says, "No, surely thy people will come out of this land with great substance." Because the fact that they have their president and have removed you off the land, you have a right to make that claim. Unless you punk out. In 10 days, we have to do this. And it's not impossible. There was much propaganda designed to promote ethnic discrimination against the United Nuwapian Nation in the form of false media, indoctrination, claims, and purposes of their development this is what they claimed: our development was for intended uprisings. This propaganda incited fear amongst the state of Georgia's local authorities, county officials, political parties, influential community activists, and community organizations, inciting prejudiced views towards members of the United Nuwapian Nation that was rooted in our ethnic identities. Discrimination was felt far and wide, with attributes such as hate group, suicide cult being attached to the United Nuwapian Nation. With the conviction and sentencing of the President, Dr. Malachi York, the United States instituted a final forfeiture claim against the United Nuwapian Nation 476 acres of sovereign land on July 12, 2004. In view of their domestic laws, which violated international law. This act dispossessed the United Nuwapian Nation of the resources, territories, and forcibly transferred an entire population of men, women, and children off of their land, which in turn will force them to assimilate and integrate into other lands, subjecting them to vast amount of discrimination due to their distinctive cultural practices and rights to maintain, control, and protect their cultural heritage. On August 27, 2004, in the United States Middle District of Macon, Georgia, I wanted to correct the date. I said August, I think 17th, 14th. It's August 27th. The systematic attempt to confiscate their land was successful by a final forfeiture in order to vacate issued by the United States federal judge C.S.B. Royal was enforced. The entire property had to be vacated in an impossible time frame of 7 days. 476 acres of land with 300 family schools, governmental buildings, religious sites, temples, museums, restaurants, social quarters, homes, storage warehouses, farms, food, personal property, including furnishings, computers, temples reflected their cultural expression, intellectual property, thousands of religious books and documentation, historical literature being housed in historical institutions, all to become vacant in 7 days. All to become vacant in 7 days. Who helped move the land in 7 days? Who was there? How hectic was that? You couldn't imagine what we had to go through. You couldn't imagine. It was torture. You know why it was torture? Because they were preparing to bring crews of TV cameras up there to embarrass our nation. To have us walking off the land while they filming children leaving like they had in the Trail of Tears when they did to the Native Americans before. They wanted that same opportunity to watch our women walk off of our land and go forth and find a place to live in a land that hated them, in a place that discriminated against them, where they already set it up for our destruction. And that sits in our chest as men, as our children right now to this day can't even adopt these schools because the devil is teaching them contrary to their cultural education that they need to have and was educated with on their own land. And this is not something that we're going to sit down and allow. I know I'm not. I know you're not either. So the other part goes into our claims and the acts that were violated. And you can look up these acts yourself, such as the Convention Against Torture. There's a Convention Against Torture that all of these states have signed on to. The moment our president said he was being tortured, and they allowed that to continuously happen, they violated Article 1 of the Convention of Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, Degrading In Article 1, it says each state shall take effective legislative administrative measures to prevent acts of torture. No exceptional circumstances whatsoever may be invoked as a justification of torture. Nothing. You cannot, under no circumstances, enforce domestic law in lieu of torture. If he says he's being tortured, that immediately ceases all criminal proceedings because they're violating international law. They also violated this criminal immunity to a foreign head of state. If this was to get into the forum of the international community, which it will be, these other nations will be disgusted at the United States, which they already are. Nature's on our side because the entire world is embarrassed and is tired of the United States being in their business. China, for one. All of Middle East is pissed off. Russia is pissed off. Afghanistan, Mexico is pissed off. And you should be pissed off. Article 8 of the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, look it up. Indigenous people have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation. Article 8, paragraph 1. Indigenous peoples have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation. Do you know that's what's taking place right now? Each and every Nuwapian that has paid any bill had to pay for education, gas, any means that any economic, whatever monies you had to pay out to survive in their society, you'll do reparations for that. Since May 9th, actually to August 27th, the day we had to leave and force off of our land, every last Nuwapian, the United States has to pay for forcing you to assimilate. How difficult is it? We all know it's difficult. It is very difficult. Especially for our women and our children. And the men themselves have to work for the slave master. Work for the same people that forced you off of your land. You got to go make him some money now. And while you let your president sit in a dungeon. Article 8, Part 2, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It says, states shall provide effective mechanisms for the prevention of and redress. Look up the word redress. R-E-D-R-E-S-S. For any action which has the aim or effect of depriving them of their integrity as distinct peoples. You've been deprived of your integrity to be distinct. You want to be distinct. You want to go to your jobs, to their jobs, dressed in your attire. You want to chant 939. How many of us want to have these practices fulfilled as though if you do that, you're going to have a problem? That's integrity at work. That's your integrity on the line. You shouldn't have any fears of practicing your cultural traditions anywhere in the world. That's a violation. They didn't redress us for that. And we've been subject to that for how long? It is. Article 10, I'm going to skip down a little bit. Article 10 and Article 20. Where we say the United States, the United Nuwapian Nation claims, our claim is that the United States act of forcibly removing indigenous people off of their land